Hello, 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 people. Welcome back to the MUFC MPB channel with your host there, Anil Kandola, joined with an individual who's making his second appearance, I believe, on the channel, Mr. Graeme Bailey, the brilliant Mr. Graeme Bailey. Graeme, I just want to say thank you, not only for joining me, but just before we click record on this episode, you did say that my hair looked okay, which has given me the world of confidence. So thank you very much. How are we, my friend? Everything okay?
I'm great, mate. I said it looked great as well. Not just good, it looks great.
There we go. And that's all we've got time for. Thank you, everyone. But no, look, Graeme, I think it's a brilliant time that you're joining me because there is so much going on with Manchester United. One name, I think we should just get straight into things, really, because as I say, there's so much to really delve into in terms of United. Let's start with Matthias de Ligt. Now, of course, this has probably been a name that's been linked with Man United for a while, purely just off the basis that he used to work with Erik ten Hag. But it seems now there's a lot more than just a romantic connection with the player and the club now. There seems to be some concrete information coming out now that Manchester United are interested and have open discussions with de Ligt. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, it's one that's been ongoing. I did this piece about 3 weeks ago where the rumours emerged and I managed to get confirmed that he'd been offered to Premier League clubs around because his situation at Bayern Munich was that, yeah, he wasn't happy. He wanted to move on. Bayern Munich were willing to let him explore that. So his agents, as they would and as they do, got in touch with a number of clubs who might be interested. And that naturally brings you to the Premier League. There's only so many clubs who can afford de Ligt or where he would want to go. So, a lot of Premier League clubs were in the mix, Manchester United being one of them. Obviously, being made aware that it was available, all the clubs do it would just started doing their checks on him. Obviously, United have a bit of an advantage with Erik ten Hag, given his relationship with the player. He knows him, made him Ajax's youngest ever captain as well, so they are very close. And it's progressed from there. United initially, United were looking at how to get this done. Would it be a loan with an option, which Bayern are open to, by the way? They'd obviously rather sell, but a loan with a view to maybe a mandatory or an an option with various details kicking in. We're yet to get there, obviously, in terms of the detail, but obviously it's his wages as well, and he does have significant wages here. He's on well over £200,000 a week. But obviously, United are hoping to move some of their higher earners on. Casemiro, obviously, in the next 2 months, they're hoping he'll go to Saudi Arabia. Harry Maguire's future's in the balance. Victor Lindelof as well. And United are hoping to bring maybe two centre halves in. So, yeah, this one's progressing. It's got a real chance of happening. And when we say what I want to make sure though, Anna, was that when we say Ten Hag has recommended him, he's given his thoughts on it. The way United work now, it's not Erik Ten Hag. It's more, do you want a centre half? Yeah, I want one, maybe two. And then it's, oh, de Ligt is available. Yeah, I know him and all this. So it's the way this new footballing department is working. Like I mentioned, we'll talk about the appointment of Vivell soon. But it's the way they're working. He's recommended him and they are progressing. I said they're having talks. We know that Ten Hag has spoken to the player as well. He's relayed that back to the club in terms of just checking where he is himself personally. Where he is how he is physically, mentally as well. And there's no red flags coming up. Everyone forgets he's only 24.
Yeah, yeah.
It's unreal. And if you can get him in for, it's going to be less than 50 million euros if it's a permanent deal. Wouldn't surprise me if it was a loan with a mandatory, but I think the two clubs are discussing that as we go. The wages will be a major thing, but United are hoping to make room by letting others go. Obviously, Varane's already gone. He carried a lot of wages, but yeah, at 24, and when I've been in a room with Ten Hag when he's talking about the central defensive options, last season I was in a couple of press conferences where he really does like a righty and a lefty. And the Bramford one was a curious one because it is lefty, but Bramford is very good as right foot as well. So that was one you could get away with. But Martinez and de Ligt, I think Ten Hag would see that as pretty much his perfect sort of scenario with that right footer and the left footer going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes perfect sense there, Graham. I mean, just quickly in terms of de Ligt, obviously we will get into a lot of your information because that's what we're here to do. But in terms of a personal perspective, look, it's no surprise since he's moved on from Ajax, he really made his name there, of course, under Erik ten Hag. But I think it has been quite difficult for him post his Ajax days. So, as you say, he is still very young. There's more than enough time for him to sort of, revitalize his career and turn things around. But in terms of De Ligt, do you see a massive possibility with the added factor? Of course, it will be working with Erik ten Hag. That's where he really enjoyed the best part of his career so far. Could you see this happening in terms of it working in a positive for De Ligt at Man United?
Very much so. He's a. It went a bit wrong towards the end of that Juventus days, didn't he? He went to Juventus, did really well. It's not really happened for him in Munich at all. But I would point out that was under Thomas Tuchel, and there's a lot of falling out under Tuchel. Joshua Kimmich is probably going to leave Bayern because of what happened to Tuchel. Kim, the big Korean centre half, who I love as well. He looks like he's going to stay and probably try and work things out under Vincent Kompany. But I wouldn't really hold it against De Ligt. It's clearly a bit of a risk signing anyone because if De Ligt should now be, if Al are going to call it a plan, he should now be like one of the best central defenders in the world. His stock has dropped a little bit, but sometimes that's how you can get these players. We've seen sometimes the stock drops from a Dennis Bergkamp to the Philip Coutinho way with Liverpool. Stocks on very good players do drop, and you can take advantage of that fact. And I think De Ligt is one of these. I think he's very well suited to England. As you say, at 24, he's got his best years ahead of him. I think it ticks all the boxes. Obviously, it comes down to the fee and the wages, etc. Of course, it does. But I think it's too good an opportunity for United not to look at. And I would say United scouting department were already fully versed on De Ligt. They liked him as a player, they liked him as a person, even if Ten Hag wasn't there. I still think United would be looking at this deal. I really do.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, that's certainly a vote of confidence that it's not just an Erik ten Hag protege, if you like. In terms of obviously, before we move on to everything else that there is in terms of Manchester United, in regards to this centre half position, as you've alluded to already on this podcast today, that it won't necessarily just be the one name that Manchester United go for. Of course, considering the outgoings potentially in that position for United. Just a couple of questions to wrap up this defender talk. Are Manchester United likely to go back in for Branthwaite? Of course, if player sales were to happen, is this something that would potentially be revisited in the future? And is it a likelihood that Manchester United will sign more than just the one defender?
I've always been told they wanted two. I think it was on the show before, and they were looking at Anselminho from Boca, which they missed out to Chelsea for him, as it turns out. But I've always thought it would be two. I don't think Maguire and Lindelof. I don't think them two. I think one of them will be gone before September. I think one of them will be gone. Ideally, I think the club wouldn't mind both of them gone, but I think one of them will go. And then you lost one of them and Varane, so it makes sense to bring in another one as well. We know Martinez's injury record, so I don't think they wouldn't go for two. And they have to cover the bases here. And so, did they go back for Branthwaite? I don't see it at the moment, given what Everton is saying. Everton class him in the £70 million bracket, which again, it's probably fair enough, considering what likes of Fofana have gone for and Gvardiol recently, and even what United paid for Maguire themselves. Unless United were, even if United got towards 70, it would have been loaded up with extras. It would have been 40 and a max 50 down with at least 20 to 30 added on, and that's not what Everton are looking for. So I think there'd have to be a major shift in Everton's thinking for United to go back in for him. Not to say they won't make another bid, but for United to get him, I think it's going to take a major shift in Everton's position.
Yeah, I think that they really needed to make the most out of the profit and sustainability rules, didn't they, in terms of trying to push for something. But as we see, and it's very likely, as it's been reported, that Matthijs de Ligt is firmly at this stage anyway, right at the top of the priority list for Manchester United in that defender area. Let's move on and focus our attention now onto Joshua ZIRKZEE. Now, of course, we've had several.
One thing I would add on the centre half, is they haven't given up on Todibo yet. That one is in the background because I think if De Ligt and Todibo would be, or Todibo and one other would be the ideal what they saw. So I wouldn't rule out De Ligt and then Todibo coming in at a later date because United still haven't given up on that yet. Obviously, there's a lot of legal things and stuff and arguments going on behind the scenes, but they haven't quite given up on Todibo yet.
And this is exactly why we love getting you on, Graham. We make sure we cover all bases on this show. So brilliant as always, my friend. In terms of, as I say, Joshua ZIRKZEE, like we said before, this is a big name that's been linked with United. He has had interest, certainly, from Italy as well, of course, with AC Milan. There have been even other clubs that have been linked with a pursuit of Mr. ZIRKZEE himself. So are Manchester United close to an agreement on the personal terms? Will the release clause be triggered? Where are we at with this one here, Graham? Because I think this one does have legs, doesn't it?
It does. They are very interested. My information is now that ZIRKZEE is making sure he wants to join the right project. He's talked to United. He's talked to Ten Hag. He wants to know where he's not chasing the money. He's not chasing the big club. He wants to make sure this next club he goes to is the right club for him in terms of his future. So he's been asking United, right? Well, I know Højlund's there. Where do you see me in the squad? Am I playing with him? Am I playing behind him, literally, or in the squad terms, am I behind him in the pecking order? Do you see me ahead of him in the pecking order if I come in? He's asking those questions, which is very, very sensible from a young player in his position. And he's asking the same of Milan. But as it stands, if you have Milan and Man United next to each other offering the same things, you would think that United are favourites, and that's why Key Drabshin. I know Milan have been going about the agent fees, etc. Drabshin's been keeping Milan at arm's length. Milan were trying to do this at the start of July for good reason. They knew this English interest from United. There's Arsenal, there's Chelsea. Milan knew this interest was coming. That's why they were trying to get the deal done quickly. They weren't able to do so because now his clause has kicked in from July 1st at 40 million euros. And so yeah, I think that's what some people are missing. I know is that it's the player's decision here, and we'll come on to a few United players as well. But it's the player's decision what will be the telling factor here. And I think if ZIRKZEE is convinced by Ten Hag, by United, that puts them in pole position. It doesn't have and with a lot of these transfers, it doesn't particularly have a lot to do with the money. As we've seen with Archie Gray going to Tottenham, Ange Postecoglou persuaded him to go. He was won over by the project. A lot of these players, especially younger players, they want to know. If it was all about money, ZIRKZEE would be going to Saudi Pro League next week, but
Yeah,
he's
for
not.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
And so I think it's not really the money situation. United will trigger that clause as soon as they know ZIRKZEE wants to join them. They'll trigger the clause. Of course they will. That's just how it is. And yeah, I think it's interesting. ZIRKZEE, he's a very different player to Højlund. I think the way he comes and plays, he comes deep, he plays. I think he's the ideal foil to Højlund. United, from what I was always told, they don't want someone to come in and be exactly like him. That's why I never rebought I didn't really buy the Sesko ones claims, to be honest, because that was just chalk on chalk. It was be against each other. They were either going to buy someone older who Højlund could learn from, or someone very different who they could maybe even play together. But someone different to offer the squad another type of role, and that's what he is. So I think he's an intriguing prospect, and he's very much at the front of the queue now for United striker targets. I think ZIRKZEE is the one they are progressing with, and we'll see how it goes this. I think this week is vital. But interestingly, if I was a United fan, I'd keep an eye on the AC Milan news. I'm actually doing a piece today, about AC Milan checking on Lukaku, and there's a feeling in Italy now that Milan have missed their opportunity here, and they are looking at other options for the striker situation. So yeah, I think as every day goes by, Milan are less and less confident, which is a good thing for United.
Of course, Graham, what's going on? I'm getting excited. I'm a Manchester United fan. I can't quite believe the position that we're in at the moment, being linked with all of these individuals. It's quite astonishing, isn't it?
It is a good player, so see, the only club I would perhaps be really fearful if I was United is if Juventus come calling. Juventus like him a lot, and Thiago Motta.
Yeah,
he is such a influential coach. The job he did at Bologna. We'll probably see Calafiori go there purely on the back of the fact he wants to follow him. And if Juventus push hard and Motta comes calling, I don't think ZIRKZEE will say no to Motta. I think Juventus are the danger. Keep an eye on Juventus.
It's almost like a merry-go-round, isn't it? AC Milan missed their opportunity. Manchester United seem to be in pole position, but if they miss their opportunity as well, other clubs are ready to pounce, aren't they? It's
yeah, very much so.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And another name that I really wanted to pick your brains for is Manuel Ugarte. Now, obviously, this is again another individual that has been heavily linked, not just someone that's going around the rumor mill. There have been several established, experienced, and well-connected journalists who have been linking this individual with a move to Manchester United. In terms of this individual, Graham, I just want to, as I say, get your information, get your side of things. What have you heard about this potential move? How much are United looking to offer? And as I say, what is the latest on this deal?
Yeah, it's not dissimilar to what happened with Delict, where he's it was made known to his people by PSG that he was potentially going to be available this summer, and we know PSG are absolutely stacked with midfielders from Emery to Vitinha. You know, there's some I could probably name 8 or 10 midfielders there. Ugarte is one who may be the odd man out here. And so again, his intermediaries and his agents were making teams known in England that he was available. In England because there was a lot of English clubs who were really very keen on Ugarte before he went to PSG. If you remember, Chelsea were very close to getting him before he went to PSG. If I was a United fan, we talked Delict, we talked ZIRKZEE, I'd be more excited by someone like Ugarte. What a player. I think he's a wonderful talent. I really him and Manu in midfield. I think even more so than João Neves. I think Ugarte is Premier League ready. He's a 23-year-old. He's got everything about him. I think this is such an exciting prospect. I really do. I think he's a wonderful. He's not world class, but he is potentially. I
Wow.
think he's got I think his ceiling's high still, and you can take advantage of PSG's situation where when they've got such a big squad, sometimes good players fall by the wayside. This is an instance here. We know United have talked about this, have been offered him. United didn't approach PSG really. It was United were made aware that he was available. Other clubs have been made aware, like not from Arsenal to Liverpool to Chelsea to Tottenham. All these teams who want midfielders have been made aware of the Ugarte's situation. There is interest from Europe as well, but yeah, this is one to keep an eye on. United like him a lot. They liked it. As I said, they liked him before he went to PSG, and he hasn't had a bad time at PSG. He just hasn't been player of the year. And we've seen young
Mm.
Emery emerge at PSG, who's an absolute brilliant young talent. So obviously PSG don't want to hold him back. So by allowing Ugarte to go, there is that opportunity here for United. It might just be another great chance for them. And obviously, yeah, we'll talk about another player as well in a moment, I guess. United and PSG. There's a few bits of contact going on between these two clubs about certain players, and Ugarte is one of them.
Right. Well, we'll park that potential discussion just for now because I have got one or two questions in terms of potential incomings for United. Just to wrap up, of course, like the names being linked with Manchester United at the moment and the discussion, the conversation. In your opinion, taking into consideration everything that you've been told and all of your understanding, which player would you say United are closest to signing at this stage? Which one would you say is the most advanced deal right now?
The three main ones that we talked about there, ZIRKZEE and Delict, I think them two are more advanced than Ugarte, for instance. I think Delict, buying what had happened, but then ZIRKZEE, I think, ooh, I'd say Delict slightly ahead of ZIRKZEE in terms of where we are, but I wouldn't say one is more likely than the other necessarily. They're both progressing well, both progressing United with ones. Again, we're only in the first week in July. We're not even back for pre-season yet. But yeah, they're progressing. But not, you know, I think Delict's probably easier because there's no real competition for him at the moment.
Yeah.
I think he wants to go to United. So I would say Delict at the moment, just because that's probably slightly
the,
easier
the
to
the
do.
path is a bit clearer, if you like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And look, to wrap up all of this incoming stuff, it's not quite the players we're going to be discussing now. It's a certain individual that you did touch on very briefly a little bit earlier. Christopher Vaval. Now, this is an
Mm.
individual that I want you to take the floor with, Graham. I want you to explain to the Manchester United fans a little bit about this guy. Will he have a major influence on signings? What will his role be at the club? And I just want to get a bit of background information on him because, look, at the end of the day, Manchester United fans, and very understandably so, I think it's a common theme across all of football fans. They're heavily interested and they're invested in, of course, the signings and maybe even the outgoings. But individuals like this do play very important roles at football clubs. So please take it away, Graham. What can you tell us about this individual?
Yeah. Christopher Vivell is someone who people probably won't remember. He was actually at Chelsea up until last summer, having been there for about 6 months or so. It wasn't long. He was brought in as part of the Chelsea wave, but it wasn't working out for him. Before that, he was technical director. Yeah, it wasn't just chief scout. So he was technical director at RB Leipzig. He come from Red Bull system. He was at Salzburg as well. He's very, very highly thought of in the footballing world. I'm doing a story today. I can confirm that he was talked to by Newcastle to be their new sporting director, ironically to replace Dan Ashworth at
Newcastle are not
some
going to be
point.
happy with Manchester United, are they?
No, he was the one who got away, sort of thing. You know, he is he's he's just a very, very knowledgeable person in the transfer market. He's someone who Jason Wilcox has done work on. Obviously, it's the first deal that Dan Ashworth signed off on since he came in, which is, they always wanted a recruitment guy. They didn't go for Dougie Freedman. They've gone for Christopher Bell. They've gone short. It's a short-term appointment, but I think that's just so they can get him in quickly and get him embedded, and see how he operates this summer. And he's someone who I understand that Ralph Ragnick during his time at the club was fairly buoyant about and recommended him at some point as well. I've heard that in the background, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts this summer. But he's a top class operator, and if it's someone who Ashworth and Wilcox want to work with, then I think now we're not talking about like Sir John Murtough anymore, who just weren't good enough to be in situ at United. It really wasn't. You're talking United off field now are on a different level now. Well, now Dan Ashworth is there. Now Jason Wilcox is there. Omar Barada, as well, and then you've got Brailsford and Blank above them. This operation out United is top class. So, I think they brought Vivell in for recruitment. United are fairly there's work to do in the recruitment. They're happy with a lot of the recruitment because I think the recruitment staff there do very good work. This it's just someone at the very top to guide them a bit better and what they want, and when they're coming to sign these deals off. Um, and Vivell is coming in to do that, and he'll be able to advise United on the multi-club ownership thing as well. Ticks an awful lot of boxes, and I like the fact United have just, Ashworth's come in, and on day two of him officially being sort of at United. I don't even think United have confirmed it, have they? But Newcastle have confirmed. Anyway, they've got him over the line, which I think is really important because we're at the start of July now, so there's 2 months left now. You couldn't be messing around for another few weeks
No.
and appoint him in August. So
Mm.
you see, I think it's a real sign of progression from United off field where, they're getting him in, they've got it right, and it's a short term deal initially, but I wouldn't worry too much about that if I was United. If they're really happy, he'll be staying long term.
Yeah.
If they play, I think whilst United is taking a look at him, he's taking a look at United as well. Because it's all very well saying United say, "Oh, we've changed and this and that," because he knows all the stories. He'll have heard about it from Ragnick as well. So he's probably checking out United as much as they're checking on him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's a salient point, and I think that's more than appropriate, isn't it? Especially given Manchester United's difficulties, should we say, off the pitch as well as on the pitch. Look, I want to take our focus now because I know we're quite strapped for time. You're a very busy individual, Graham, so I don't want to keep you for too long. But I think, look, the big talking point for me, anyway, personally, is of course the outgoings when we're discussing that particular topic, as we slightly touched upon earlier. Marcus Rashford, PSG links have emerged again. Their interest has never sort of diminished. It's always been there. They've always seen Marcus Rashford as a top player. There have been several reports coming out that if Rashford was to show his openness, shall we say, of potentially starting a new chapter in his footballing career, PSG would be ready to take advantage of that and make him, I wouldn't necessarily say the new Mbappe, but the new poster boy, certainly of the top club in France. What can you tell us about this? Is the link, shall we say, just general interest? Is it just admiration and respect and appreciation from PSG for Rashford? Or is there something more to this one, Graham?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter. I think PSG are ready to come in, from what I understand, as soon as they get any positive positivity from Rashford side of United, and I think United are now, from what I'm told, United are ready to let him go. I think there's been so many instances in the last 12 months of what's happened with Rashford. From being there that season he had
Mm,
previously to what he did last season is just beggars belief, the drop in form. But I think the more concerning thing for Ineos, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, etc., was what Ten Hag had to cope with off the pitch.
mm,
Publicly we saw there was an instance after the derby game, wasn't there? There was an instance before the FA Cup tie with Newport, which saw, and I'm told there was other things happened off the field, and his relationship there with Ten Hag at best became strained. I think that United just aren't going to put up with this,
mm.
and I it's my understanding that if PSG um do show a willingness to do a deal, then United are willing to do it as well, and it probably will come down to Rashford. But my understanding as well, I think Rashford might be open to it as well. It's going to be an interesting one this summer. It really is. United aren't going to put up with the behaviour that Rashford showed. United would love Rashford to be that figurehead. They'd love to be in there at the front of the squad, that embodiment of what it means to come through the system. He can be that, that leader, that inspiration to likes of Manu and Garnacho and Kumbawala coming through, and many more besides. But is he? Would you tell Garnacho and Manu to go and copy what Marcus Rashford's been doing for the last 12 months? I would hope they're not. You know, it's been and it culminated in missing the England squad. So
Difficult, isn't
it's
it?
it's it's not good, and I think if the opportunity is there, United will take it. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah, I think this could be one of the biggest transfer sagas of the summer. If it does happen or doesn't happen, I'm sure everyone will be right across this because it does have the potential to be an absolute explosive transfer potentially from one huge club in Europe to another. One individual who has been hitting the headlines for all sorts of reasons over the last 18 months is Mason Greenwood. Now, let's just, of course, stick to the footballing side of things. He has had a brilliant season in Spain. He has got his career back on track, which has, of course, at least raised the eyebrows of a few clubs across Europe. In terms of Mason Greenwood, what can you tell us, Graham? Is the departure likely from United, and are any club even close to completing this deal at this moment in time?
From my understanding with Mason Greenwood, and Jadon Sancho, United would like deals in place for them to buy next week. They don't want either player back for pre-season. And to be fair, the players don't want to come back for pre-season. They're due to come back in or around July 8th, I believe. And so yeah, United are working behind the scenes now hard to see what's available. Would not be a massive surprise if they either go out on loan again with
Mm,
options. United, they are willing to come down in price, especially on Sancho. 40 to 45 million for Sancho, 40 for Greenwood. It's not a lot of money, but clubs are always looking for bargains, and so the Greenwood situation, he loved his time in Spain, loved his time at Getafe, but I think the clubs coming in know that United would loan him as well. So in terms of him, there is interest in Italy. I think the player would rather stay in Spain. There's France as well. We know there's a few clubs in France. Eh, And again, I'll come back to it's going to be the player's decision. If he says United, I want to go and sign for Atletico Madrid, for instance, and they want him, they're going to dictate that. Same as Sancho. As we saw with Sancho previously, United tried to sell him to Saudi and whatever, but he made a decision to join Dortmund. That might come again for Sancho again. If there's anyone stepping up to pay his wage to pay his full asking price, there isn't particularly at this point in time.
mm,
So don't be surprised if we see loan deals. And when we see loan deals, it's loan deals with a view, you know, United would like mandatories there, but maybe options. Because to be fair to United, both these loan deals have worked very well for them.
yeah.
Both players have had excellent loan spells before they went out. Could United have asked 40 million for Greenwood last summer? Nowhere near, not a chance. Even Sancho, before he went out, could you wish to get 40, 45? No. But if Sancho goes to Germany, for instance, and is player of the year, United might get, I don't think they'll ever get the plus 70 million pound to pay it. But if he goes to Dortmund and blows it up again, they might get over 60 million for him. You never know. So I think, they're in a good place in terms of they're happy to let them both go out on loan. Well, not happy to. They would rather sell. There's no getting away from the fact. But if they have to sanction a loan deal, I think they are looking at that as a serious option.
Wow. And I think again, these names aren't small fry, are they? In terms of the European footballing landscape here, these could have certainly anyway a lot of potential to be huge, huge deals that we will see in the upcoming summer. I think, look, at the end of the day, whatever your opinion is on Ineos, if you have any reservations, it does seem anyway that they are willing and they are open to be making some big decisions. Let's just hope they materialise for the benefit of Manchester United. I just wanted to speak to you about Adrian Rabiot. Now, I don't think there's been too much out there, but I've thought to myself a little bit, Graham. He will be a free transfer. Manchester United aren't exactly in the position to be splashing 100 million on this player, that player, whatever. This could potentially be something I thought anyway, of course, with the interest from maybe not last season, but the season previously from that. There was a bit of discussion there. I believe there were a few reports at the time claiming that Rabiot's mother was a big stumbling block in all of this because she was very dependent and has a big say on his career. So in terms of him joining Manchester United on a free transfer, is this a player that Man United could move for again? And in a wider aspect, is this free transfer, small fee, cut price kind of move something that Manchester United will be looking for in the upcoming summer?
United aren't going to spend more than, so probably a limit of 50 to 60 million pound on any one player, which is just sensible. In terms of Rabiot, I think that one's had its day. I think last time around under the old regime, I think it was possible. Under this regime, I don't see it. Haven't heard too much of his name. He's clearly a quality performer. He really is, but he's going to have a huge, huge wage packet to go with it, and he'd want a wage packet on a bumper long-term deal as well. I don't see it. I must admit, I haven't heard his name briefly mentioned. We know he's, as I said, he's a quality forward, but we know United do like him in terms of that. The scouts like him. What's not to like? He's a French national. He's a top midfielder. I don't think they're looking at that avenue though. I thought expensive free agent. It's not the way United are looking. I don't believe.
Yeah.
De Ligt, as we say, is slightly different. He's 24. Yeah, I don't think the profile is what United are looking for right now. No, I'd be surprised if Rabiot turns up in England at all. To be honest, I can't see him now coming to England.
Yeah, well, that's a bit of a shame because I have really enjoyed watching him in the Euros, Graham. So thanks for that. But look, you've given us some brilliant information, so I can't have everything my way, can I? Just one
You can't,
very,
you
very
can't, you can't have it if you get Ugarte. Where's
yeah,
Rabiot
you
going to
can't have
play?
everything. You can't have everything in life. I think that's rule one, isn't it? Look, I've got one final question for you in terms of Manchester United because it's been a brilliant show and I know we're running out of time. But Aaron Wan-Bissaka, is this a strong target for the likes of West Ham? There have been a bit of interest, some rumours going around that West Ham are looking at him. Could this deal materialise and is he firmly on the transfer list for Manchester United?
He's not affirmed on the transfer list. From my information, they do like him as a player, like him as a person. I think a new contract would be possible, but he would have to take a wage drop in return for an extended period. Right back isn't an area of concern for United particularly. It's not an area that they're particularly looking to enhance. Dalot and Wan-Bissaka they're very happy with. Obviously, they took the option up on Wan-Bissaka. Means he's on very good money. I think there is interest elsewhere. We've seen the Turkish clubs have been linked with him, which I think is more likely in terms of being able to take his wages. We've seen West Ham, even his old club Palace linked, but he's on a very good wage at United now. As they took up the option on him, so I don't unless the team comes up with a really good offer. I don't think United are desperate to push him out the door because I think he's a very good squad member, and I think Ten Hag likes him as well.
Yeah, and he can certainly do a job, especially when you say in terms of the numbers. Graham, thank you so much for your time today. It's been so enjoyable. You set a very high bar when we first had a good old chat on the MPB channel, but I think you've even superseded yourself there. So thank you so much for your information. Thank you so much for your hard work, and I am sure you will be joining me again very soon on this very channel.
Thanks, for having me. I look forward to it.
Brilliant as always. And thank you so much, of course, to everyone who's watched today's episode. Please be sure to like, subscribe. I always say this, you know the drill. Please, it helps us get brilliant guests like Graeme on all the time. And in the very unlikely case you don't follow Graeme on Twitter or X or whatever you call it, make sure you drop him a follow. He's absolutely across everything, not just Man United either, because I know we're all football junkies and Graeme is absolutely across everything. So thanks again to Graeme. To everyone who's watched today's episode, as I say, please be sure to like, subscribe, all of that business. And please join me again when I'm joined with another top guest.
Subscribe to the MUFC MPB YouTube channel.